Good evening from wintry Oklahoma. Brian Hartman here with the Big Weather Guy channel. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion about the two-pronged winter storm that's affecting the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. starting tonight and moving on through tomorrow into Thursday. As you can see from the national map here, we've got a bunch of winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and even a couple of ice storm warnings here in far eastern West Virginia, which is never good news. We've also got a bunch of flood warnings, flood watches up here throughout the south into the Appalachians. And then we have a lot of cold air pouring in to the northern tier of the U.S. over the west. They're pushing south and interacting with all this moisture. That's going to give us a pretty nice little winter storm. Going to hit Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, all the way up through the Great Lakes into New England. And then another storm ongoing here into the mid-Atlantic and the eastern seaboard. So let's take a quick look. Okay, this is the valid map for today. They've been having some slight wintry weather up through the plains, and we've had a few drops of rain here around here in Oklahoma, and then should start to really crank up tonight as things get going. And I know over in the Mid-Atlantic, things are already well underway in West Virginia, Virginia, and those environs, the eastern Ohio Valley. Tomorrow's forecast map showing much the same. The swath of very heavy snow moving from eastern Kansas all the way up through the Midwest towards New England. And the southern tier of that cold air is where you get the chance for the mixture of uh, freezing rain, sleet, and so on. And then something we'll look at a little bit towards the end of the discussion here in the deep south, with that warm, moist air pumping up and these surface low pressures. You've got the stage set for some severe weather, some severe thunderstorms, and possibly some tornadoes. We'll take a very quick look at that at the end. And then moving on to Thursday's forecast map, things slow down through much of the southeast with some rain left over and the main system exiting New England up into the Canadian Maritimes, and the next system starting to plow in to the Intermountain West. We won't focus too much on that. We'll wait for the forecast to come back into line a little bit. Okay, I know everybody here in Northeast Oklahoma, especially my better half, who is a teacher and who is anxiously awaiting word from her school in Tulsa whether they're going to be in class tomorrow. I know she'd rather sleep in, and the kiddos, our kiddos, already have a snow day for tomorrow, or at least a distance learning day. There's a slight chance. I'm not going to make any guesses or estimations about whether it will happen for Tulsa or not, but it is right in the spot where there's a real good chance that we could have some mixed freezing rain and freezing drizzle, which is never good. So we'll have to see. The the real driver of what determines where you get snow, where you get sleet, and where you get freezing rain is all about the thickness of layers of warm air above the thickness of cold air. So when you have precipitation falling in up in the cold air, obviously way up high, it all falls as snow initially. If there's a warm, thick layer of warm air all the way to the surface, that snow will melt and fall as rain. This is the really dangerous area here, where you have a relatively thick, warm patch with freezing rain or freezing temperatures right at the surface. And so that precipitation falls through, stays liquid, until it hits the surface, and then it freezes, and that's your freezing rain zone, and that's always dangerous. When you have a little bit more, uh, a better, larger column of cold air, that's where you'll get that refreezing of those water droplets back into sleet pellets. And then if it's a full column of just cold below freezing temperatures, you'll get the snow. So this is a good graphic I always like to show because it really demonstrates why it's so difficult. And then depending upon how far north or south the cold air and the warm air go, that really can cause a big change in what kind of precipitation you get. All right, looking a little bit at some of the details forecasted for snowfalls. This is for western Kansas out of the Dodge City uh, Weather Service Office. They're expecting a decent amount over northern Kansas, Hays, 6 inches there along I-70, as you can see. Southern part of Kansas, not much. Looking here out of south central Nebraska into north central Kansas, and you're seeing some pretty decent 5 to 8 inch total forecast across north central Kansas, and 3 to 6 generally along and south of I-80. And it looks like Lincoln will get 4 to 6, and Omaha might get some snow finally. I know they've been starving for snow this summer or this winter. Looking here out of the Topeka office, and you see much the same story there along and north of I-70. Salina 6 inches, 6 to 8 in Manhattan, 4 to 6 in Kansas City. So I'm sure you're all ready and very eager for that. Kansas City office, much the same. A little bit different forecast compared to Topeka. So it'll be interesting to see who turns out right on that. Iowa, this is out of the Des Moines office. You can see that swath of heavier snow going up across the southern half of the state and I-80 there from Des Moines to the Quad Cities. Chicago, um, you're looking at 4 inches maybe, and tailing off to the south, uh, Paxton getting 2 to 3 maybe, and then a little higher amounts up along Lake Michigan in far northern Illinois into Wisconsin. Looking a little farther east, this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting in terms of the hazards of freezing precipitation, more along the lines of freezing rain. Uh, the Northern Indiana office here has forecasts 4 to 6 inches across the northern tier, tailing off down towards Marion, Indiana. But you'll start to see in that transition zone between the heavier snow and then farther south, where that warm air is a little thicker, is where you start to see that risk of freezing rain. So be on the lookout there. And then looking a little farther east at that storm that's going to be impacting the mid-Atlantic, we're looking at 8 to 12 inches possibly across Virginia, northern Virginia, and southern Maryland there, just south of Washington, D.C. 12 inches up, 12 inches at Fredericksburg. It'd be interesting to see. And then again, that second string of impulse that's going to come through with the plain storm is going to drop quite a bit of freezing rain across the western portion of their forecast area, and you can see up to a 1/4 inch of freezing rain in a few areas. West Virginia, this is out of the Charleston office. Not a tremendous amount of snow, but they do have some areas that are really going to get hit hard with freezing rain. And this is where we see those freezing rain warnings already up. Snowshoe, 1/2 inch of freezing rain. That's just devastating to power lines, trees, you name it. never a good story. Plus, they're expecting quite a bit of rain through the Appalachians for the rest of this week, which could cause some flooding concerns as well. Okay, looking a little bit more nationwide, we see here's the snowfall forecast for the day tomorrow, Wednesday, and this shows a really good outline of where we're expecting the heavier snows, eastern Kansas through Missouri, and then this very straight, strong gradient line where you'll transition from that snow to the freezing rain. Here you can see the forecast of the freezing rain problems, that small signal here through Oklahoma that all the teachers are hoping does come to fruition, and then the little stronger signal through Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and on up into the Great Lakes. And then the very strong signal of freezing rain that's already starting to crank up there along the Appalachians, western North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia, areas that probably are still hurting quite badly from Helene. And then this is for Thursday during the day, Thursday through midnight, Friday morning. You'll see that storm starts to exit up into the Maritimes and Quebec, and good little glancing blow there to New England. Okay, moving on to the other risk on the southern tier of this system, we see the severe weather risk starting tomorrow, cranking up, and it's a slight risk level 2 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center's scale, and places such as New Orleans, Jackson, Mobile, Montgomery, and Birmingham up towards Atlanta. Not a tremendous risk as of right now. I haven't looked in detail, but there is some tornado risk. They've got a 5% area there outlined, and it's just a question of see how things develop during the day and the timing of the surface low pressure and how it proceeds. So with that, I'll call it a night. Look forward to any comments or questions you have. If you have any specific questions, please don't hesitate. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please consider hitting subscribe so you can hear future discussions and hopefully take part in my learning series, which has just begun, and it's called Weatherwise. We'll be going in depth a little bit into some of the basics of what makes weather work. All right, so good evening, and we'll talk to you all later. Cheers.